This is a great example of why you need lead, because an architectural element that connects the window to the building. If you think about surfaces and textures and materials of a building, stone, wood, whatever it is, you immediately go from that to a big sheet of glass. It doesn't flow, and so the lead makes it like a part of the matrix of the whole building. The original point of stained glass was to be a transparent extension of the stone. A project like this that's a completely new technique that's never been done before, it starts off slowly, and so that's one thing Narcissus, in his I'll call him more experienced age, has given me that sort of confidence to know that when he did a dome in Taiwan that was 7,000 square feet, and he said the first half of the project took 3/4 of the time, and the last quarter of the time they did the second half.
Right.
So you ramp up your process. The whole thing has been we've had to figure out a way to get each one of these panels printed out and into the kiln, and all these logistical things that have been taking up a lot of our time. And just so you know, like the first 6 panels we did in about 3 months, and in the last whatever this is 30 we've done in about 2 months. So it's already picking up a lot of steam. Plus we've been working on the area that's the most kind of critical, which is in here. This is the center of the window. We wanted to start in the area where it really matters how much light is coming through, because we want the focus to be on Christ, and we want all these different reads to happen. And so we've really honed in on just the center part. And if you think about it, these trees encompass about half, not half the window, there's about 5 by 4, 20, 40 panels are just trees. That's a quarter of the window. And that's very abstract. That's the kind of stuff that we know we can get 6 or 7 people on it and we can crank them out.
So where the color is lighter, is that where the most light comes through?
Exactly,
then?
right.
So those are going to brighten,
Yep.
those will be...
Yeah, the light of the white is going to be like a clear glass, and then the dark will be the color. So there's no, what I love about it is there's no like brown or black in this window. It's like an impressionist painting. That's how we wanted it to be. We wanted it to be like a giant impressionist loose painting up in the sky, basically telling the story. And I'm sure I'm assuming you guys know the story of what the window's about.
Yeah.
Right.
And kind of the whole thing, and there's a million things, and there's a million sermons that I know Adam has planned. But I'll kind of just give you the gist of what I like about it is that to me it gives you so many different opportunities to connect to the story of the Bible over time. I think of it as this is the window that's going to be the center of the congregation above the preacher's head, and over time when people come in, if they just had a baby, they'll connect with Mary and Christ. If they're sad, they'll connect with Mary Magdalene. The redemptive power of God in the Old Testament, all of these stories, Adam and Eve, Noah, Cain and Abel, sin and redemption happening throughout. And then on the right side, the magnitude of what happens when you actually believe and when you're connected, and the outreach of children with a well in Africa. We've got the reformers, we've got Mother Teresa, and all this kind of joyful scenes on the right. There's so much to look at, and over time, I just feel like people are gonna every week sit there and go, I see something different. Right. Well, that's kind of neat. Look at that. Oh, there's a couple butterflies there. Look at those fish. And there's going to be so many opportunities that you guys have to share this information with everybody, because visually anybody can react. I mean, we had a woman in here who runs a spa in Malibu, and she looked at this and she's like, I'm not a Christian, but I really love that window. It's like it's already kind of drawing people that are not Christians in, and I think that's a big part of what we want to do.
So I'm just curious
Yeah.
about how do you determine how did you determine to make the green, that whole section there green, that color green?
Well,
what's your thinking
so the
process?
concept of the window is the 3 gardens of the Bible. So it's the Old Testament, the Garden of Eden, and it's the New Testament Garden of Revelation, the Garden of Resurrection. Oh, no, sorry, that's the Garden of New Life, New Creation, and the center was supposed to be the Garden of Crucifixion.
Okay.
And so the trees are the tree of knowledge, the tree of the cross, which is referred to as a tree,
Right.
and the tree of life. And so we wanted it to feel like, and Adam said, it somehow get the life of Christ in there. And I'm like, oh, okay. All these things, I was like, I'll try to see that. And so I said, how can I work it in there? And so my thought was, from a distance, I want it to read very lush, green, and colorful, like a garden. I want his life to be a garden. you know,
Right.
because the idea of growth so the first read is it's just green, like all these different greens, and then when you start to look, you start to see all of the parts of his ministry, and we also didn't want it to interfere with the main figure, so it had to kind of be pastoral and sort of set
Right.
back, so there's not a lot of contrast in it. It's really abstract and it's very loose. You know, when you see the glass
It is.
downstairs, it's incredibly loose. It's the loosest part of the window. I mean, there's going to be some portraits in the window that are very rendered and tight and realistic, but that part we wanted it to feel like, you know, just like this loose, like Matisse kind of thing, like where it's
Right.
just colorful and it sets back and your eye needs a resting spot. So we figured the resting spots in the window were going to be the green of the background and the blue of the sky, where your eye can kind of just. And
And it
those two
does.
colors are very soothing to the eye, and they're not. We just want. I mean, there's so much activity going on that we needed a couple of areas where your eye could rest. So that's one of them.
Not just some of the figures in the sky. I mean, I just.
Yeah.
I just, when you point.
Yeah.
So at first glance, we want those to feel like clouds. You know, the
Yeah.
clouds in the sky.
I've never seen those
No, I
before.
just
now saw them.
Right, I just.
Yeah, you'll see them downstairs. So we've made a bunch of those in glass for you.
Oh,
So.
those are
So that's the
awesome.
cloud of witnesses, which is
Right.
supposed to be
Oh
people who
my
have gone
gosh,
before us, who
that
are
is
watching
so
over us. So
cool.
on the left side, it's all these Old Testament figures, and on the right side, it's all the New Testament figures, including the evangelists and certain apostles. And
Stained glass that's in the United States,
Yeah.
where would this rank as a completed window?
well, it's the largest window. It will be the largest single image window ever made, ever
Ever made
in stained glass in the world, ever.
in the world?
Ever. Yeah, I mean, there are larger installations in terms of, there are buildings that have stained glass going all the way around, and
Right.
but as far as one continuous image that tells one story, it's the biggest one, yeah. Yeah, which is, you know, and Adam always says, he's like, we didn't set out to make the biggest window in the world, it's just that we designed this building, and in order for it to have the right scale, that's what it had to be.
Right.
So, so it will be the biggest.
So, and is the window then, is it protection on the outside? Or you maybe you talk
Yeah,
about
so
it.
thankfully the window, which is another reason we can get away with doing this fusing technique, because it makes big, thick pieces of glass.
Okay.
So if it's got weather exposure, you've got weight issues, and it'll
Right,
deflect
yeah,
over
see
time. But the way the building is designed, there's a curtain wall on the outside. So there's like this angled curtain wall of glass that's going to go on that far northeast side of the building, and then the window will set inside of it vertically. So there'll be a good, you know, in the narrowest spots 3 to 4 feet, and then in
Okay.
the widest spots 20 feet of distance inside.
Okay. so
Climate
it's
control on
okay.
both sides,
Yeah.
so you won't have pressure differential, you won't have any weather, you won't have any. So that's why we tell Adam, we're like, this thing can easily last you 500 to 700 years. But that's
So,
the
so there's going to be glass on the outside before you can actually see the thing?
from the outside. I mean, the main viewing of this is going to be from the inside of the
Inside.
sanctuary. Yeah,
Because that glass could reflect light and make it hard to see from the outside.
from the outside. Yeah, well, so from the outside at night is when it'll be visible,
Yeah,
because the stained glass is always going to be more visible from the side that has less light.
right.
So you always have to have light behind it. So in the daytime, inside the sanctuary, you'll see the window in all of its glory. And then at nighttime, when the lights are on inside, from the outside, as you're driving by, you'll see it. So that's kind of the idea. And then from the outside, from a distance, you'll hopefully be able to read the figure. I mean, the figure of Christ is 36 feet tall. So his face is 5 feet tall. His head is about the size of you. Or, you know, it's about this big. It's huge. His eyes are this big. It's monumental. It really is.
Well, how many, how many artists actually did the drawings, or did you do them all?
I did them all. Yeah. It was
Wow.
all, I had a lot of time, but yeah,
That
that's
is
kind of,
incredible.
yeah, it was a lot of time and a lot of layers and a lot of versions. We went through a lot of versions. I had a lot of conversations with Adam, you know, when he's driving down the freeway on his Mustang with the top down. He's on the phone telling me, hey, what do you think about blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, oh, well, we can try that. And he's always, make the butterfly yellow. What do you know, he's always thinking and always, so it was a long process. And it was totally collaborative.
Sure.
So it was my hand doing all the artwork, but he was involved with everything, and so was the committee. And so that's what they wanted, and that's how we work best. I feel like it's these windows, these projects that we do. They're going to be up in. They're not going to my house. It's not going to have my name on it. It's going to have our studio's name on it, but it's going to be part of what your community is. And so we
Right.
wanted it to reflect that. And so I think that was one of the reasons that we ended up getting the job, was because we were excited about doing that. You know? There's been a million times where he's told me, will you try this? And I'm like, artistically that's not going to work. And he goes, just try it. And I try it and I'm like, holy shit, he was right. It's actually better. So I find that that we grow by hearing from all of you guys in the committee. And so all of this stuff was a combination of everybody's efforts. He's like, the cross would have been this big and it would have had this seat on it. So technically he would have been sitting here, so all of the proportions of the cross were very important. Yeah, so we got that, and this is the sign. This is actually based on the cross that you guys have at your church.
Yeah, it looks
Right,
like it.
yeah.
And he does talk about that cross and signs.
There's all kinds of other stuff. We've got grapes and wheat representing water and wine, and all these flowers are kind of symbolic. And I was going to say, I like the concept of water in the wells. The well, you have a well here, here, and here. And so it's kind of a neat sort of combination of this one being an object of torture, this one being an object of ministry and teaching, and this one being an outflow of mission. You know, like what happens when you all this sinks in is you want to give and you want to create. So there's just a lot going on.
I'm kind of curious why you put an Alaskan Husky dog there.
It's a wolf. It's a wolf. Yeah.
Okay.
So the scripture says the wolf will lie down. It's the peaceable
The wolf.
kingdom.
Oh, I always
The
think the
wolf
lion
is
and
the
the
wolf
lamb.
is lying down with the lamb. So yeah, see, everybody thinks about the lion and the lamb. So we put the lion there too because you know we don't want to make other people mad. But technically, the scripture says the wolf will lie down with the lamb. So we've got all three of them together. So they're living peaceably. And then the other kind of neat thing is so the representation of the Trinity is the Father, the Son, and the Spirit.
Oh.
So you have that kind of
Yeah.
triangulation happening.
This
Wow.
stays.
And then this is also something to note. All in the background here, see all these little heads and figures? This is the community of saints. This is meant to represent all of the people who have gone before us. So these are just people worshiping and rejoicing kind of in heaven back there. So it should feel very big. It should feel.
Well, you just covered the whole Bible.
Right. Which is another thing that we, in our research, we found that there hasn't really been a single image, a mural or a window or anything that covers the whole thing, start to finish in one continuous image. And all these little individual panels are very, very alive when they're in glass.
Well, somewhere in there, and I can't remember, there's the Matthews ministry.
Yeah.
There's
This
a,
is
Yeah,
the
this is
guy
gonna be
is it
right
over
there.
there? Okay, there it is.
So-
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of the last things we put in there.
Okay.
And I would not be surprised if somehow, some way, he gets me to change something else after it's up there.
So how does the process work? Does somebody officially sign off and you get a panel?
Yeah. Well, no, the actual
Or is it in sections
the
or how?
glass itself, you know, it's our discretion to get it done. I mean, we're
Right.
going to bring, because it's just not possible. The last chance that the church has is when the design is finished. We say, this is the design. You look it up, you know, upwards and backwards and zoom in. And,
Right.
and if there's anything you want changed now, change it. Because we're going to try to interpret this in glass. And of course, when I say interpret it, we're not copying it. I mean, it's a whole different medium. This
Yeah,
is
right,
paper.
because you take
This is
it,
a computer. We're making it in glass, so it's got to have. And you'll see when you get to see the process that it's loose. It's not. You can't really get meticulous about it. You've got to kind of go for broke, and that's what Narcissus has been great about. He says you've got to take this design and be inspired by it, but don't copy it because
Right.
you know in the design there's photographs, there's all kinds of stuff. It's not all you know hand drawn stuff. Most of it is, but we've got to interpret it in glass. So there's going to be you know, a margin of difference. I'm not going to say error because it's,
No,
not,
it is.
it's actually better. It's going to become more luminous. It's going to become more contrasty. So, yeah, I mean, there have been times where we finish a window for a church and they go, oh, it's too bright or it's too dark. And, you know, if it's possible, we'll change it. But that's the big, scary
piece of
kind
it.
of process is that at the end of the day, we're not going to know if this thing is done right or if it's the right amount of light or darkness until it's too late to do anything about it.
That'd be
You
awesome.
know, we feel good about it. We've spent a lot of time on it. We've put in a lot of effort, and like I said, the project itself has created a technique that hasn't been done before. A combination of glass fusing and stained glass, and it's not only that, but we got a new building that we realized that this building wasn't going to be big enough for us, so we rented a new space. We got a 7-year lease up the street. 7,000 square foot space with beautiful windows that we're going to be able to look at a lot of these panels in natural light.
Natural
light.
Coming in 2 weeks or 2 months from now, they're working on it right now. And next door to us is moving in the company who makes the glass. They're a national company. They're up in Portland. They have resource centers all over the country. They have New York, Santa Fe, and the Bay Area. And they've always wanted one in LA. And so they've helped us on the project to work on these techniques. And so now they want a presence in Southern California. So there's all these crazy things that have happened based on this project. That
That's
have been kind of miraculous. All the connections that have happened, all the things that people that have been brought together, companies brought together, new techniques developed, and
So when you start out, the panel of glass is clear. And then
sort
you're
of.
fusing
That's a
begins.
good segue. Let's
Let's go
walk
ahead.
into the shop. For the most part, it's all done with color and glass. All of these color shifts from green, like a pine green to a spring green, having a purple shadow on the leg here. This really loose impressionistic style is gonna translate into I don't know what, but hopefully something that's luminous and that
It's really pretty.
that's captive. In the past, you cut that piece, and if it's red, you paint black on it or brown to give it shading. We cut it as a single piece of amber, very light amber, and then we cut some strips of purple and some strips of green and some strips of pink and laid them on there where we wanted them and poured glass powders in there, glass frit, and then we painted in there. So we ended up with this like architecturally stacked thing with all this glass shards on it, and then you put it in the kiln and it all melts together. The hard thing about it is that you're using a material that you want it to look like it's alive and flowing, but it's actually in and of itself, it's a rigid material, it's glass. So you have to stack it and cut it so that it looks like a brush stroke. In order to make this green feel like a big green paintbrush stroke, you've got to cut out of a hard piece of glass and lay it there. Then you've got to lay another couple of pieces there and there to make it feel like a deeper shadow. So that's been the hard thing, and that's what Narcissus has been, is the person who's got so much experience that he says, if you put this type of frit on there, it's going to make this reaction. If you do this, it's going to do this. Because it's all about predicting what it's going to look like after it's fired.
So this new technology of fusing the
Yeah.
different glasses, what kind of a weight is each of these?
Oh, it's heavy. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, a single sheet of glass can be 2 to 3 millimeters. So when you make a traditional stained glass window, that's what you're dealing with. These pieces are all 6 millimeters thick. So and each panel is going to be 100 pounds. So if you do the math on that, that's 16,000 pounds. 8 tons is going to be what the window weighs.
How will this be transported?
Very careful. We were going to do it in trucks. So we're going to put each panel will be in a crate. There'll be 5 panels per crate, and we'll put them in a truck. Hopefully, the weather will be cooperative. That's going to be the scariest part.
Okay.
I remember when we were at the Getty recently, they had an exhibit of the windows from the Canterbury Cathedral, the 12th century windows that came to America. First time they'd ever been out of the church. And the woman who was curating it said that 6 or whatever it was, no, it's more than that. I guess it flew from London to New York. That flight was the longest, 7 or 8 hours of her life. Imagining all these 12th century windows in a plane, that irreplaceable. So we're going to be nervous, but I'm assuming we'll do things like multiple shipments, and they'll be, obviously they're going to have to, that's 161 of these, so it's going to be really big and heavy. Multiple trucks, multiple loads. We don't know when we're going to start bringing panels out. So that's going to be a kind of an issue.
Yeah, because if you're in the winter of
Especially in the winter.
2017.
Yeah, and you're sliding around on an
Yeah.
icy road. But the way these things are packed
They're
is
sound.
actually kind of amazing. And the truth is they're very strong. I mean,
Yeah.
this is like concrete. When it's fired and it's fused and it's that thick, it's very strong. Not to say that it can withstand a truck that explodes, but if they rattle around a little bit, they should be okay. And they'll be packed with foam, and they'll be very, very carefully packed. I don't like to think about it too much. 'Cause once the glass is all made, we cut pieces of lead and we wrap them around and we create this sort of tight matrix that's connected by solder joints to hold it all together. And then in between the lead and the glass, we push this cement mixture, which is like a putty that insulates it, waterproofs it, and protects it and strengthens it. So this is a finished panel. And the next thing we'll do is put steel bars on them. So we run steel bars top to bottom and then side to side, following some of the lead lines to kind of give it some more rigid strength.
So this is glass strokes or brush
A
strokes?
little bit of both, yeah. So sometimes it's glass, sometimes we combine them. So the way it starts is with painting. Everything starts with me in a brush.
Right.
And I just paint and I splatter the paint and I create some gesture. And then we respond to that with the glass.
With
And we
the
say,
glass,
well,
okay.
Let's put some orange on this to make it sort of move. Let's make this green stroke here. Let's add a piece of clear glass, because if you put a piece of clear glass on there, it'll punch through and lighten it. So there's all these different things you can do within each piece. But the thing that I always tell, I was telling Chuck last week, is that Like if there's something that I would want the people from the church to know, it would be that there's going to be 5,000 to 6,000 pieces of glass in this window, and the amount of time and consideration and care that went into each one of them is pretty monumental. So each one of them just takes all your attention, which
Right.
is which is the amazing thing about it. It's not like the sort of like metaphor for the church of this thousands and thousands of pieces all coming together, individuals that all come together as a unit. It's got a lot of amazing symbolic kind of meaning to it.
Where do you get that glass from?
Bullseye Glass, they're up in Portland. They're a company that's been making compatible glass for 30 years. And so what that means is that, you know, when you deal with glass, it's a weird medium because it can heat and it can cool, and every time it heats and cools, it creates a different memory in and of itself. So if you think about two types of glass, heating and cooling, trying to keep them together, they're not going to cool at the same rate. They don't reflow. It's not like ice where it melts and then solidifies again. These things have different coefficients of expansion. So Bullseye has developed this material or this chemistry that allows them to have a whole range of colors that have the same coefficient of expansion. So that allows them to all heat and cool at the same rate. And to the point, they're so meticulous that they actually test every sheet that they make. They cut a little strip off and they fire it and they test it. And so they're at the forefront of this technology. They've been doing it for 30 years, and they've been wanting to connect it to stained glass for a long time, and this is the opportunity. We already start with 2 layers, and so these are cut shapes. I'll paint on it, then we'll put all the cut glass and the frit on it, and then it'll start to grow and get tall. The glass itself it settles at 6 millimeters when it's full liquid, kind of like a drop of water on a windshield. If it's a lot of material, it'll overflow. If it's not enough, it'll shrink up and bead up. So we use this to maintain the shape. So we put that in the shape, the exact size, and then it won't grow past it because it'll want to stick to itself more than it wants to flow over this fiber. So it's like a custom dam, basically.
Kind of fire resistant.
Yeah, fire resistant fiber paper that.
So is that part of the whole new technique, or is that something?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the fiber paper is usually used as something you put the glass on when you fire it, because it doesn't stick to the glass, so it separates it from the kiln shelf. But it can also be used as a way to keep the glass from growing. And usually you do it when you're making a tabletop or something very thick with a lot of glass on it, and you dam it all the way to the edges. But the tricky part was getting the shapes right. And so we have a friend who owns a laser machine, and so we divide up all of these firings into these little patterns. We send him the patterns and he cuts them out. And he cuts them out and prints out the name of the panel number, what's happening in the panel, and the firing number. And so
There's no end to the layers of this. is
there's a lot of layers. Yeah. There's a lot that's gone into making it work. And that's why, again, one of the reasons why the beginning has kind of been so slow, because it's been developing this in the last year. And then, you know, we have 3, 4, 5, 6 light tables in here. In the new space, we're going to have 16. We can only light 3 of them at a time because we don't have enough electricity in the building. But in the new building, we're going to have 16 of these, and there'll be big, wide open space. So we feel like once we start to really move, it'll go quickly.